So the time is now and the place is Canada. This is the moment. This is the time, guys, when supply management, remember, we don't hear about it often enough in my view, it's supposed to protect us from all these price spikes in food products during extraordinary circumstances. This is when we should be laughing at the world as they deal with hyperinflation within their food markets while we enjoy our coddled and price-protected dairy, egg, and poultry industries. At least that's what proponents of supply management have been telling us for decades, as Canadians have been soaked with some of the highest dairy prices on earth. We were told those high prices were something of an investment. Paying now would save us from paying later when we'd really need it. Supply management would guarantee food security for us all when world supply becomes scarce. Look, supply management's a Soviet-style system that controls all production of dairy, egg, and poultry products. It's literally illegal to produce and sell any of those items if you don't have a quota issued by the state and controlled by a small number of cartels. Some people say it's an exaggeration to call it Soviet style. Well, when I could be criminally charged for selling milk or owning over 300 chickens, what else could I compare it to? The quotas make a mess of the market, and some producers literally actually dump dairy products into the ditch because if they overproduce and try to sell it, they'll have broken the law. The system really is that ridiculous and rigid. So now that we're seeing inflation spiking around the world due to a number of factors, how well is supply management doing in keeping our dairy price stable? It's totally failed. Not only are supply managed products rising in price, they're rising faster than any other food products. They should be the slowest to rise if we were supposed to believe those people who said this system is going to work for us. Food produced under the supply management system is more expensive than any other products. Supply management has accomplished the exact opposite of what it's supposed to do. Dairy and egg inflation prices are leading all other foods right now, as prices are rising faster than we've seen since 1983. Milk is up 8%, cheese over 10%, butter 16%. And these products are essential ingredients in many other processed foods and restaurant dishes, so those prices are going to contribute to higher costs on everything you eat. The other aspect they like to talk about, well, how about protecting the family farm? Proponents of supply management have insisted for decades that small farms would be wiped out and we would be dominated by a small number of corporate farms if we don't maintain the supply management system. Well, in the 1970s, Canada had about 145,000 dairy producers. Today, we have less than 10,000 of them. Expensive dairy quotas ensured that only large corporations and operations were sustainable, and the family dairy operations fell by the wayside. Most of those massive dairy farms are in Quebec, of course, and that's a large factor in why conservative and liberal politicians alike are terrified of speaking out against this rotten system. The average Canadian dairy farm, by the way, nets $5 million a year. That's net, people, not gross. We aren't talking about the little mom and pop operations of yesteryear. Dairy farmers love to plead poverty, but the statistics just don't show it. While dairy producers around the world enjoy broad export markets and have flourishing small cottage producers who make creative products such as specialty cheeses and ice creams, Canada languishes with high prices, poor variety, and bans small producers from entering the market. We can't pretend it's impossible to get rid of this rotten system of government control either. New Zealand and Australia had systems just like ours, and they got rid of them. New Zealand's agricultural sector flourished when they got rid of supply management as new export opportunities appeared. Getting rid of the supply management system can't be done overnight. It's going to take some years, and current producers will have to be compensated for the quotas they're reliant upon. It can be done, though, and there's no better time to start down that road to deregulation than right now. Canadians have been ripped off by supply management to the tune of over $600 per year per family for decades. And this is only going to get worse as we stunt our local food production in order to protect a small number of corporate operations. There just isn't any excuse left any longer to protect the archaic, inefficient supply management system in Canada. It doesn't protect us from worldwide price fluctuations. It doesn't protect small domestic farms, and it certainly doesn't do Canadian consumers any favors. Canada is one of the most vast and rich agricultural lands on Earth. We should be one of the world's leading dairy producers and poultry and egg producers with a vast array of products and exporting around the world. Instead, we've limited product options. We have growing factory farm operations, and we're hardly touching our export potential. And that's all due to supply management. Beef, pork, grain, even mushroom producers operate without a supply management system. Why is it apparently impossible for dairy, egg, chicken, and turkey producers to do so? Are they really that incompetent? They can't compete in the world market? Then maybe it's time to flush them aside and let real producers get in there. We need to tackle inflation on many fronts. The world's heading into tough times, and we're not going to be immune from them. One of the most obvious and effective moves we could do to reduce the food cost burden among Canadian consumers would be to end our terrible supply management system. Now, if we only had some politicians with the balls to do it. And so even ones who claim to be conservative will not touch this rotten system. And again, think of how stupid it is. Literally, it's 300 or 400. I've looked it up with chickens that you can own. I know it's a number, but if you own 401 chickens and you don't have a quota, you'll go to jail. Yeah, like technically anyways, and maybe you'll start with a fine and so on. But the bottom line is it's illegal. It's criminal to have more than 400 chickens without a quota, without this special permit from the government that they keep strangled. Same with producing eggs and the rest. Why? Why on earth do we need this? And nobody can make a living on anything less than a few thousand chickens. It doesn't mean you have to be a mega operation with hundreds of thousands of chickens, but you see these mid-range, affordable ones cannot compete. And why? It's ridiculous. It's absurd. We don't have a minimum amount of, you don't have a quota on pigs. We don't have a quota on goats or on cattle, and those industries make it. I'm just tired of the supply management fart catchers who keep making excuses for this broken system. It's a Soviet-style crappy system, and Canada is one of the last countries on the whole planet that still has it. Denise Martin asking, is it Canada-wide? Yeah, it's federal policy. And I've used that analogy, and I'll use it again for people who haven't heard it before. Jane, my wife, grew up in Rockyford, Alberta, a small dairy operation, and her father had a quota to sell cream, only a certain amount of it, but cream, but he didn't have a quota for milk. So they would milk the cows, and this story is so common, and lots of people in rural communities can share it with you, and they know about it. Milk the cows, skim the cream, sell that, make some bucks for the family, use the milk as much as you can around the house. If you've got pigs, you'll feed it to the pigs. If you don't, you pour it in the ditch because it's illegal to sell it. That's how stupid it is, and that's really what happens. So, I'm just tired of defending this. Like I said, Leslyn Lewis wouldn't defend it. I had Charest on. That's not surprising. He wouldn't, I say Lewis wouldn't speak out against the cartels. Charest predictably wouldn't. And Poilievre, unfortunately, I was surprised, but I guess I shouldn't be. He said he would keep the dairy cartels going as well, which is too bad. He's been fantastic on every other front, but nobody can pretend to be a free market conservative and support supply management. You can't. You're lying. You're lying. Supply management is the opposite of free market, the complete opposite. The complete opposite. So do you cherry pick on what you support? Are you, can you be party? No, you can't. You can't be half pregnant, guys. You either support free markets and you don't. If you support this crap, you don't support free markets.